The purpose of this video is to show how different physicians may have more complex and advanced EMR charts that go well beyond the requirements or the standards by OHIP or the CPSO. So for example, in this chart here, this is a fake patient chart, but up in the patient profile, we can see that this chart has all of the diseases coded in an official format using ICD-9 codes, both in the text format, but also in the background, say of diabetes type 2, you can see the ICD-9 coding is officially done. And this is useful in terms of disease searches, disease registries, population health and programs, and so forth. Similarly, the medications are done in a very structured format. So if you look at the background of how this prescription is formatted, you can see that all of the individual structured or the necessary structured data fields are all done in a structured format. I'll compare that later on to another chart who is not done this way, and even the days and so forth. So when you're trying to track the dates when the prescriptions expire and such, that's very useful. For example, you can, if you're trying to compare, say, how a person's blood pressure is doing, and the medications are all inputted and tracked like this correctly, you can kind of see where at the bottom where it shows the medications the patient is on. If the data is not inputted in this type of structured format, that's not an option. Preventive healthcare screening, things like pap smears and mammograms and so forth. So if we bring up colonoscopy reports, for example, first of all, it really depends on how the doctor or the staff have inputted and categorized. Here we have a chart that's correctly categorized as a colonoscopy report and not just a general surgery report. So we can see that the date of that is going to be, because the colonoscopy is categorized and filed in the standardized format, we can do searches and things to see when patients' last colonoscopies were done, how many are due, who's overdue, who's coming due. To take it a step further, what many people don't do yet, but some people might do, is you can see here that this note is structured in such a way that we not only have the date of the colonoscopy, but the result, i.e. showing polyps here, and the frequency at which the next one is due. Now this data is inputted in a format with the @ sign and the colon sign after it, that this is actually now a standardized data point that this physician, myself actually, can use to analyze the data at a more advanced level. Who's due for colonoscopies every 5 years versus 10 years. Or you can also build tools within the EMRs that track data in a very structured format too. So these types of tools are pulling out data from these types of points, dates, results, frequency. These types of things all go above and beyond what would typically be the practice or the standard of care. Along the lines of advanced data points, we can say, this here is an example of a diabetes visit whose the Canadian diabetes guidelines have individualized patient targets for their A1C levels, i.e. their sugar levels. And because this is structured in a format, we can see that a standard format, we can see that we get A1C target 0.07. So with this type of data entry, you can then start analyzing your population in terms of how many people have targets of 7 versus 6.5 versus 8.5. This is all quite useful data for government, for pharmaceutical companies, for the diabetes associations, for example. Another non-standard thing that can be done, ejection fractions, for example, from echocardiograms are not something that's tracked but automatically within an EMR, but I have here started standardizing the way I document ejection fractions. So that can be tracked and analyzed. That goes above and beyond the standard of care. If you look at pain and pain scores, so there's a standardized questionnaire called the Brief Pain Inventory. When you start tracking data in a standard format, and again, I built the tools to be able to do this type of thing and look at these scores. Well, then you can start graphing these types of things, pain scores, or analyzing them and pulling out searches and data that way. So all of these things are dependent on the physician building and or using the tools to input the data in these structured formats, all of which go beyond the standard documentation of just documenting the notes. So when we compare this patient chart to another version of the exact same chart in a more basic data structure, for example. Here we have the same patient. Again, here's the patient profile. You can see that this isn't standardized, doesn't have standardized encoding. It's not as usable from a population or data analysis perspective. The smoking and drug use part isn't really entered in the right section here. You look at all of the data points for like this is that same diabetes visit, just tracked a different way. Patient's A1C target is 0.07. That's not usable. It's not entered in a standard format. The medications are not entered in the structured format, but rather more of the free text. Or in the EMR and the computer can't really analyze that dose, nor can it talk to, say, pharmacy EMRs either. The types of data, say mammogram is more here. We have someone who's just entered in it as a miscellaneous diagnostic test, not as a specific mammogram. So if you're trying to track official mammograms or pap smear reports, it's not going to be. Again, this is the same data content. It's just not going to be as usable, as searchable, as functional as the more complex chart that was just shown. And if we go even further to another extreme, and here's the version of the chart that again has the exact same content. For example, where is that mammogram, or where's that last diabetes? Here's the diabetes note. I believe it was done November the 1st. It's a scanned image, so it's not. Even though this is the exact same data content, it's not usable. It's in any sort of way. Prescriptions have been entered in as scanned images rather than as structured data fields. So you can see this is the other extreme of things. I showed in the other video how when you export the data from each of these three charts, it looks identical in terms of the output, the printed PDF, but the usability, the functionality, the data quality, and therefore its value are all extremely different.